Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I just want to look at this article that just popped up. It's called Church in Europe Has Both Unparalleled Future and New Purpose. Now, I immediately recognized that phrase, unparalleled future, because I watched the European area devotional and I did a video about it. In fact, let me pull this up in case you want to go back and see all my notes that I took from it. But essentially, let's see, European... Yeah, historic European devotional, Hope of Europe. That's what they called it, the Hope of Europe. So I'll put this here so I don't forget it. And then I'll put this in the description below in case you want to check it out. All right, so just to catch you up with speed, if you're new to the channel, President Nelson has been doing like a series of area devotionals. The only ones that I know of is he did one for Kansas and Oklahoma. And I think it's because the church donated like a room to this museum. It's like a Native American museum, and it's like a family search room so they can look up their ancestry. So there was that. There was one in California, and then there was one for all of Europe. And in that, President Nelson said that Europe has an unparalleled future, which is a pretty stunning statement, especially given the reality of Europe right now. And he even acknowledged that. He's like, I'm not naive. I know that Europe is Europe. And he said the same thing about California, that these areas are tend to be looked at as secular places or places where the worldly philosophies thrive. But he said this about Europe. I think he knows something. He said that Europe is rich in the blood of Israel. The same thing was said in the UK. It wasn't a regional devotional by President Nelson, but it was Elder Holland, Elder Cook, and President Ballard. All three had served their missions in the UK. And President Holland said essentially the same thing, that we would be naive to think that I'm trying to quote him, that we had gleaned all the blood of Israel in the British Isles, or something to that effect, that the British Isles are rich in the blood of Israel, and so is Europe. And we know that, right? Because the majority of the 10 lost tribes went north and they went into Europe. And so let's read through this. Let's see what he says here, because the devotional, let's look back at the date on this. This was I did the video probably like right afterwards. So this was January 24th. So at the beginning of the year, and now we have this article that's coming out today. Or actually, I guess it came out yesterday, August 21st. Okay. Let's see. Elder Massimo De Feo, General Authority 70, Europe Central Area President. So that's who we're looking at right here. More than half a year after President Russell M. Nelson proclaimed Europe has an unparalleled future, quote unquote, Elder Massimo De Feo, a General Authority 70 with a half-decade in area leadership in Western and Central Europe, sees opportunities and growth. So that is encouraging, opportunities and growth. Quote, from my perspective, President Nelson's devotional gave new energy to all members in Europe, said Elder De Feo, the 61-year-old native of Italy, who served in the Europe area presidency as a counselor beginning in 2017, and then the area president last year. President Nelson spoke to Latter-day Saints in 48 European countries in a January 23rd devotional broadcast originating from Salt Lake City. Quote, you have access to power, God's power, that will literally change the future of Europe, he said. As you keep your covenants with increasing precision, you are the hope of Europe, and you are the hope of Israel. That phrase, hope of Israel, that's what he called the 2018 Worldwide Youth Devotional. Let's see. 2018 Hope of Israel. And in that devotional, some pretty remarkable things were said. Some very explicit things talking about this generation. This is the one where Sister Nelson talked about encountering all 12 tribes, or people from all 12 tribes. And this was a kind of like a landmark devotional. It was not regular, and they keep referencing this devotional, and he called it Hope of Israel. So this idea, hope of Israel, hope of Europe, I think that this is tied with gathering scattered Israel. It's the hope of gathering scattered Israel. Elder DeFeo said local church leaders throughout Europe frequently remind Latter-day Saints there of the devotional. Quote, many refer to that as a framework for what needs to happen and how we should look at things in the church and in the future. It gave us new purpose. It was very, very specific, even in some of the promises and the blessings. End quote. And the devotional was timely as well, coming just 4 weeks before the start of the ongoing the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Yeah, that is okay. Just 4 weeks before that war broke out, a war that I still can't believe is actually happening. Quote, we went back to the devotional and we recognized immediately the hand of the Lord, Elder DeFeo said. Elder DeFeo said he tries to see beyond the tragedies of the conflict and challenges of refugees. Quote, I think we need to look at opportunities. So many members helping each other in a united effort at all levels in all countries, he said in a recent Church News podcast. I've seen solidarity. I've seen sincere love for others, the desire to help in any way possible. I've seen it all, really, the gospel in action and in practice. So I think what he's talking about when he says, I think we need to look at opportunities, is that whenever something bad happens, the Lord can also make good come out of that thing. I was actually just looking at Israel 365 just a minute ago. Look at this. Russia delays final verdict on preventing Jews from making ALIYAH to Israel. When it comes to war and different things, now, this may not really have to do with the war because this is Russia, but I think I can't remember who I was talking to. I don't know if it was Rabbi Gerfing or if it was Adam Berkowitz, but somebody had said that Russia is actually losing a lot of Jews because a lot of them are into tech and they've immigrated to Israel because Israel is really big into tech. So it's interesting that you have Jews leaving Russia. And then let's look at Ukraine on the map. I did a video earlier this year at some point about how this conflict could be a catalyst in Jews from Ukraine making ALIYAH or immigration to Israel, right? The same thing I've talked about Afghanistan, how it ended in such a tragic way, just a sudden withdrawal, which forced a lot of these people from Afghanistan to immigrate. Many of them came to the United States and to Europe. And I'm interested in Afghanistan, not just because I was there in Bagram when I was in the army, but in this portion of the country is where you have the Pashtuns that claim that they're descended from Israel. And if they're right, that means that a bunch of them have just migrated or immigrated to places where the gospel is more accessible and they're not under so much control, right? So war moves people, and that's not good. Like it's not good temporally. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of it's a very stressful experience, obviously, being a refugee. But from a spiritual point of view, leaving the temporal behind, it could open up doors spiritually. There was the whole thing with Syria. Many of them came into Europe, and so there's been a lot of people moving around the world for different reasons. So I think that might be what he's referring to a little bit. The conflict created an unprecedented unity among members throughout Europe, with many rising up to help arriving refugees. Meanwhile, Latter-day Saint refugees from Ukraine have integrated into and helped strengthen local wards with their testimonies, dedication, and resilience. So while the conflict's temporal impacts have been tragic, Elder DeFeo said, certainly, quote, certainly the spiritual effects are very positive across the board in every place, country, and unit of the church in Europe. Since the January devotional and late February start of the conflict, there have been several noteworthy announcements for the church in Europe. During April 2022 General Conference, new temples were announced for Barcelona, Spain, and that's where I serve my mission, and Birmingham, England, United Kingdom. Joining previously announced temples for Vienna, Austria, Brussels, Belgium, Oslo, Norway, Budapest, Hungary, and yet to be determined site in Russia. So I'm glad that that's still in their plans, because like that's been announced for a while. Look at this, LDS temples, chronological. Let's go here. Refresh. Okay. Control F. Russia. The Russia temple was announced April 1st, 2018. Oh, it seemed like that was like, I thought it was longer than that. Yeah, okay. So April 1st, 2018. That's huge because that was the first year of President Nelson's presidency. LDS temple map. Let's look at these guys' temple map. So they just have a placeholder right here for the Russia temple, because I would imagine it'd be in Moscow, but I don't know where the majority of the members are in Russia. But anyway, they have it for Moscow. So yeah, so it looks like what we need, what I hope to see is, well, a temple at least in every country. I was just talking to Thomas Holton, that's in Ireland. And, we've been talking about these smaller modular temples, and hopefully Ireland will get one. It'd be great if Scotland did. Poland, Slovakia, Moldova, Bulgaria. There's like none down here in like the Balkan area. Anyway, I would really like to see more temples in Europe, and hopefully more get announced this next General Conference. Okay, so temples, and later in April, the church announced a realignment of the Europe and Europe East areas, resulting in the Europe Central, Europe East, and Europe North areas, headquartered respectively in Frankfurt, Germany, Moscow, Russia, and London, England. Elder De Feo now presides over Europe Central area. Okay, so that must be respectively. Okay, so the Central, that's based in Frankfurt, Germany, so that's where he's over. Okay. For decades, waves of immigrants have passed through Europe from neighboring countries within the continent as well as from beyond. Quote, "This is not new. This is our history. Europe has a long history of immigration and how to help immigrants." End quote. The church is on the front line, eager to help and work with local governments and charitable organizations. We truly are all brothers and sisters, children of God, and because of that, we should do everything possible to help everyone with a need, regardless of personal circumstances, citizenship, language, or culture. The gospel is always inclusive and never exclusive. Let's see if there's anything else here. It's basically the end of the article, but yeah, interesting things, interesting times. Oh, not that. Interesting times for Europe. I would really, really like to see if there's going to be new temples announced for Europe. Of course, any new temple is exciting, of course, but this one, the Barcelona, Spain temple, that just blows me away. I served my mission there, and I guess I felt like Spain was just going to have one temple for a long time. So this happened much quicker than I thought it would. It'd be great to, yeah. Anyway, it'd be great to have more temples. That's the moral of the story. So. One last final thought. I think it's interesting that, you can see the Lord working with nations and peoples and regions and continents, because, after Christianity was adopted by the Roman Empire, and then from there spread to Europe, and it had a really strong foothold in Europe for a long time. And when I say Christianity, of course I mean Catholicism, and then the resulting Reformation and schisms and stuff like that, but for a very long time. And so you have to wonder, with how Europe has become more secular and stuff, maybe it's been going through this kind of like deconstructive process, getting rid of the old beliefs and things that were hindering them from accepting the gospel. And it has to be done in a process. The reason why I say that is because I'm going to have to look this up sometime, but I think it was whoever dedicated China originally said something to the effect of, Lord, break down these dumb idols so that the church can go, can flourish here. And what happened after that was there was the Chinese Revolution. Communism took hold, and it basically, communism is um, not very, is usually hostile toward religion, and it kind of broke that down. Although, I'm sure there's still a lot of that, but I'd have to find where that was said. So anyway, the point is that I think the Lord works in phases with countries, regions, continents, religions. I tend to think that the Islamic world, they're a special people, and it may just be that during this mortal life, it's not really their time. Maybe most of them will accept the gospel in the spirit world, or their descendants will receive it in the. Many of them will receive it in the millennium. Who knows? But I think that there's many, many, many moving pieces, and so yeah. So I think that's why you could say, yeah, the future of Europe is really bright, because this old past of like the Christianity that's been there is kind of just crumbling away. Every day it's crumbling away, and it's making room for something new. So, okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.